working really hard, and my entire team is working so tirelessly to bring you the best of the sessions, the best of the workshops, and with the best of the speakers and mentors. And here today on the session for day 2 of Introduction to Fiction Writing, we are back with Miss Heena Pardeshi, a fiction author, a very, very amazing, very, very versatile woman. She was with us yesterday, and it was an amazing learning. Today, if I want to introduce Hina ma'am again on the day 2, I think that won't be fair because now everybody knows her. She is a fiction author who works as an editor-in-chief and manuscript critic at a local publishing house. And she's been writing for over 7 years, plus a lot many things that she's gonna tell us. Today we are back with the day 2, and here today she's going to cover how to plot a story, basics of plotting a story, description versus narration versus exposition, and consider characterization in fiction writing. So, Hina ma'am, we welcome you back.
Hello, hi, thanks a lot. Thanks a
It's a
lot.
pleasure having you back. Yesterday, I got so many compliments for your yesterday's workshop. Everybody was saying like we were not expecting it's going to be this long session and this much learning will be there. So
Thank you.
today we are back. Now I hope everybody has their notebook and pen ready to take on the notes. I have mine and let's see. All over to you, ma'am.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Pooja ma'am. I would like to begin. Today, I will not be sharing a lot of things like yesterday. I'm just gonna take 2 seconds and just copy and paste the links that I've been asked yesterday to share here.
Yes.
There's a link to my website, to my YouTube channel, to the guided writing session, the guided writing groups information, and everything that I could think of. So all the links are there. You guys can just go there and see.
Yes. You must go
Today,
there. And sorry if I'm interrupting, but I loved your background. It's giving me the entire vibes of sitting in a library and reading, and now talking about fiction writing. It's amazing. So, over to you.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm really happy that you like it. Took me a while to find this one, but okay. So today we are going to be starting with just a second. I'll just share my screen so that we have the presentation that you can see. Yes. So welcome to day 2, everyone. I really hope that you guys at least tried to do the assignments, the 2 or 3 assignments that I mentioned in between the session. Because see here, I might not be able to check it because, we are not having a lengthy, a week-long or a 2-week-long session. But if you'll do those assignments, you'll understand more about fiction, plus you will also have more questions, which is something that I always encourage my students for, because when you have more questions, you can ask more questions, and that way more of your doubts would be cleared, and I can answer more topics. I can tell you more about more topics, right? So today also I again request you to please get your notebooks, because today's session is a little technical. I generally teach a lot of technicalities of novel writing, fiction writing, because people don't really understand it, but there is a whole different world of technicalities when it comes to fiction writing, right? Because we generally don't bother ourselves with the technicalities, and that is why a lot of people end up with bad books, or books that are not readable, or books that have to be hastily published, termed as self-published. Okay, I'm not against self-publishing. Self-publishing is very well and good, but only if you know what you are doing. Okay, so we are going to be talking about it later on if you guys want, but for now, if you guys don't have a pen and or a paper, please, I really request you to get one, because you will have to take your own notes. Now, the first thing that we are going to start with today is description, narration, and exposition. Now, what happens is whenever we talk about fiction writing, generally we call it as narrative prose. Okay. Now, what happens is this is a very, this is used as an umbrella term, this narration term. And many times, in fact, all the times I would say, writers are confused between what exactly is exposition, because there are a lot of tutors and the amazing internet knowledge, right, tells us that exposition is basically description. Okay, that is not the case. Description is different, narration is different, and exposition is different. Today, we are going to see with a very simple example the difference between description, narration, and exposition. Now, description, describing things, scenes, events, or objects for the benefit of the reader is known as description. Okay. Description is describing things, scenes, events, or objects for the benefit of the reader. Description is when the writer describes or tells the readers about a particular thing as it is, without adding their own perspective. This is very important. Describing is, or descriptions are, when a writer describes a thing without adding their own thoughts into it or what it means to them. Okay. Third, description helps the readers imagine how a particular thing is. For example, if I'm supposed to describe the room around me, why would I do it in my book? If I have a scene where I'm sitting at a desk and I'm writing, or maybe I'm talking to you guys, why is description necessary? Because the reader is not sitting here right now, right? So the reader doesn't know what is my atmosphere, what is my setting. So description is generally used for settings. Okay, but it can be used for other things as well, for physical appearances, for describing, even describing how a person feels, but I prefer to show it rather than tell it. Okay, description comes in telling. Now, this is an entirely different concept that we are not going to get into right now. But in order to give you a very small example, I have another example as well, but I would just pick up my water bottle, okay, and show it to you. Okay, if I keep it this way, you guys can see, right? So this is a water bottle. Now, if I have to describe it, how will I describe it? It is a pink insulated water bottle, right? Made of whatever metal this is. I don't know what that is. So it has a gray cap, okay? It is a sipper. That's another thing. And then it has a loop for holding, and it has some text in its front. This is called description. Okay. No emotional description, no emotional commentary, or no emotional perspective of the writer has gone into it. I, as a writer, have simply described this object the way it is. Okay. Now, let us look at a prose example. Her hair were orange as burning fire, eyes blue as an endless ocean, cheeks flushed like red apples. Now, here, what's happening is, now, are you able to imagine what I'm trying to tell you here? Are you? Right? It is easy to imagine because I'm giving you metaphors and similes. Okay, it's actually just simile, but yes, her hair were orange as burning fire. So I'm just describing what is the color of the hair of the girl. Eyes blue as an endless sea, cheeks flushed like red apples. Okay, Now, why we have used this comparison? The comparison can be used in description. It helps in imagery. Okay. Imagine if I would have simply described she has orange hair, blue eyes, and her cheeks are flushed. It doesn't give you an imagery, but when you listen to this sentence, her hair were orange as burning fire, eyes blue as an endless sea, cheeks flushed like red apples, there is some kind of imagery that you are able to imagine, right? So this is how a good description is. This is a very lame example. Actually, I've just made up some anything for the sake of example. I did not get the time to go into books and pick up examples from there. Otherwise, I would have been no. No. Sorry, my cats. Okay, sorry. So what happened, Katie? Sit down. Okay, sorry. So what happens is, what I'm trying to tell you here is, if you have descriptions, it is not necessary that you make them bland. Descriptions can be made fun, can be written in a lyrical way. Okay, not maybe always, but sometimes at least, right? So it can be done in a lyrical way, but the description is only for the benefit of the reader. It is only to let the reader know what exactly someone looks like, or what exactly is the surrounding like, or what exactly is the character seeing. Okay. Now, we are going to talk about exposition. Exposition is again one of the most misunderstood concepts in fiction. So please pay attention. Okay. In simple words, exposition is the background information that you provide the readers for the sense of context. It is the information that is not exactly a part of the plot, but it helps in acquainting the readers with the story better, with your characters better. It can be added to the writing through backstories of characters, through dialogues, thoughts, introspection, flashbacks, etc. Now, a lot of times writers tell me that exposition is description, right? But it is not description. We've just seen what description is, and now we are going to look into what exposition is. Think of exposition as just the background information, which may or may not necessarily be relevant to the plot. But what happens is, when you are writing a fiction story, when you're working on your characters, it is very, very important. In fact, I would say it is kind of a writer's first priority to be able to make their characters and settings very extremely relatable to the reader, right? Because if the reader won't be able to relate to it, they're not going to like it. So what will help us in making our what do you call, characters or story or plot relatable to the readers? Giving them some context, telling them about the background information, where a person is coming from. Okay, what has he endured in the past? Because all these things have a lot of impact on how they are today. And without actually directly going into it, you will be kind of explaining your readers why your character is a certain way, right? Now, it can be added in the writing through backstories. Character backstories are the bane of characterization. We'll be talking about characterization today, and in that we'll be talking about backstories as well. So exposition can be added through character backstories, through dialogues. Okay. Now, how this is done is, you can have two characters talk about maybe, you have a girl and talking to another girl, and maybe you can have a dialogue where one of the girls asks the second girl about how is your mother doing. So there, now it depends on you how much exposition you want to reveal. Okay, so just try and keep it relevant to the plot or relevant to the character development. If something, anything in fiction doesn't serve either of the two purposes, that is either moving the plot forward or adding something to the plot, or move the character forward or develop the character, then it is not needed in the fiction. It is not needed in that piece of work. Okay, so maybe the girl asks, how is your mother doing? And then if it is not too relevant for the plot, then you can just cut the dialogue short there to she's doing much better after her last surgery. But if this thing or this illness of the girl's mother is relevant to how her character has been formed, then you will have to go into a bit of details, at least saying that she hasn't been doing too well, she feels very lonely, and I feel very guilty about having to leave her alone for work, you know. So you see how you give the background information, the context of where this girl is coming from and what kind of situation is going on in her home, at her home, with her mother. So that's how it is done. The next way is thoughts. This is a very straightforward way, and I generally try and tell my students not to use this a lot, because again, if you go in thoughts, you will end up in introspection, and introspection is never great unless you are Shakespeare. Okay, so thoughts, you can just, it's like a cheat sheet, right? You can just make your character think about the sick mom, okay, and then how much ever you want to. And then you can go into introspection by making the character question, why is it happening to me? Why is it happening to my mom? What have we done? And stuff like that, you know. So then it will inevitably lead to introspection. That's why I tell, keep the thoughts, the internal dialogues to minimum. Okay. Then we have flashbacks. Flashback is again a very straightforward way, but flashbacks are very interesting if you do it the correct way. I use a lot of flashbacks. I actually use them in the way of, I use alternate timelines in my book. So what happens is I generally anyway give flashback. Okay. So flashbacks are good, but don't make them very lengthy. Just keep them relevant. Just provide relevant information. Okay. Now I'll give you an example. Okay. Now our bottle, right? So if I have to give exposition about this bottle, what will I say? It was made in so-so year, in so-so country, by so-so craftsman, right? Or maybe, you know, the date of manufacturing is this, and it will be good till whatever. So that is exposition. Describing is telling how it is physically. Exposition is the background details. Okay. Then I'll again be picking up my bottle for the next one. But I'm going to give you the second example for the second example for exposition in the same way I gave you for description. She was born on the 8th of September in the year 1990, when the world was on the brink of technological breakthrough. She was raised by a mother who was a single parent living alone in a small town of Ooty. Her mother worked the night shift at the local hospital where she worked as a nurse. This is exposition. This is not description. This is exposition. So here we are telling about the background of the girl. Now, I think this much information is very important for your fiction story, because you need to give context to readers, especially when it comes to characters. You have to tell your readers where do they come from, because exposition will provide insights to your reader about the character, and then they can think for themselves if they like the character or not. Okay. Now, the third topic that we were discussing is narration. Now we come to the main part, the heart of prose, fiction. Okay. In fiction writing, narration is the process of recounting a sequence of imagined events. It's also called storytelling. Aristotle's term for narration was prothesis. It is how the narrator, the writer, or the character, whoever your narrator is for a particular piece of fiction, perceives a thing, scene, event, or an object. Now, please pay attention here. It is how the narrator perceives. Okay? It is not how the thing is. It is how the the writer or the narrator perceives a thing, scene, event, or an object. Okay. Now, before I read the last one, I'll just give you this bottle example. If I say that when I look at this bottle, okay, it reminds me of the time when my husband, I'm sorry, my throat is actually giving me trouble today. Sorry. So for narration, I would be saying that this bottle reminds me of the time when my husband gifted it to me. It is very precious to me because he gifted to me, and some kind of stuff like that. I'm just trying to improvise here with a bottle. But obviously in story, you won't be describing this bottle unless it has some importance. So obviously here it has importance. That's why I'm describing it. So it always reminds me of the good times I have with him, and of also my birthday, because it was a very beautiful December night. So this bottle reminds me of a lot of things. The same way, a lot of objects have a lot of importance in a person's life, right? For example, if I look at this this little watch or clock watch, right? So it reminds me of my mom because my mom gave it to me. So it has some significance for me. Now, this is how you do narration. Okay, and narration is lengthy. Narration can be as lengthy as you want it. That is how narration is done, and that is what narration is. So I hope you guys are getting the difference between the three: narration, exposition, and description. Okay. Now, the person who recounts the event is called as a narrator. The account itself is called a narrative. The perspective from which a speaker or a writer recounts a narrative is called a point of view. Okay. If you want, you can just take a screenshot of this because this is important. Now, moving on, I'll be giving you another example of narration. She walked so fast that it made me feel dizzy just to look at her. When she stopped in the middle of a step, it seemed like the entire universe stopped with her, amidst taking in a breath, and that everything around her held their breath. And when she turned around, sensing my gaze on her probably, she looked like the only person there ever was for me and the only person there ever will be. I've written this. So, yes, this is how you do narration. This is narrating a scene from the perspective of the narrator. It can be the writer, it can be the character, your main character, POV character. Okay, so this, now I hope you guys can see the difference between description, exposition, and narration. Okay, if there are any doubts, please just leave them in the comment section and we'll discuss them at the end like yesterday. Okay, now everyone, I really want you all to pay attention here because this is a very, very interesting thing that I've come up with for you guys. Okay, I want you all, I know the mics are mute, but I want you all to read this story as it comes sentence by sentence on your screen. Just read it out loud, okay? And just tell me if it makes any kind of sense. Okay? Now we are moving on to the very tricky territory of plot. That's why I want you guys to try and read this story and understand if you can get it. Okay, let's do it. Rima is a beautiful soul with a very kind heart. Read with me, guys. Rima is a kind-hearted girl who studies in the day and runs her father's flower shop in the evening. Rima's mother left her when she and Seema were young. When Shubham proposed to her, Rima said no. It should be her. Rima said no. Shubham fell in love with Rima. Shubham is a rich guy who is fed up of his life. Seema loves music. Slowly, Gaurav and Seema fall in love with each other. Rima has a sister with Down syndrome whom she takes care of. Everyone around Shubham is very cunning and selfish, and they all want a part of his wealth. Gaurav is a guitarist. Gaurav becomes friends with Seema. When Shubham came to know how selfless Rima is, he fell in love with her. Rima couldn't leave her sister alone at any cost. Gaurav is Shubham's cousin brother. Shubham met Rima at a flower station for the first time. Now, I'm just going to open the chats section and I would like to know if you guys were able to understand the overall gist of the story. Yes? Please just type yes or no. Yes, ma'am. You were able to get the overall gist. Partially, yes. Yes, no. Okay, yes, yes, ma'am. Okay. Now, do you think it was making any kind of sense? You were able to get the gist, what was going on, right? But was it confusing? Rima, Seema, Shubham, Gaurav, who's a guitarist, who is something, how do they exactly fall in love with? Was it a little confusing? Would you have preferred to have read a straightforward story? Or you've just written a story like that? Okay. Okay. It was a little bit confusing. Okay. No, it wasn't confusing. Okay, then I'm a very good writer then. It was supposed to be confusing. Now, okay. How many of you actually found it weird? Let's go for the word weird. Yes? Just raise your hand otherwise. Did you find it weird? I'm not getting any answers, guys. It wasn't confusing to a lot of people. Yes, yes, it was weird. Oh my God, what is wrong with you guys? It was weird. Don't try to find a story in it. It was weird. It was bad. It is not a good story. What are you guys doing? Okay. It took me less than 2 minutes to write it. It's a bad story, guys. You need to be able to understand what is a good story and what is a bad story. Now, my entire point being, we need a plot structure. We cannot just write a story like that. That was just, I guess,
it's 12 o'clock.
Sorry. That was just, I guess, 10 to 15 lines or 8 to 10 lines of story. And that was just so weird, right? What I'm trying to tell you is, when you are writing a 80,000 word story, 50,000 word story, lakh word story, or maybe more than that, 1,50,000 word story. You cannot write it all like this. You cannot just put any page anywhere or just make up a story and keep on writing the scenes as they come to you. You write it that way, but how are you going to arrange it into a systematic story? For that, we have plotting. Okay, this is what plotting is. If I would have put this story in a plot, it would have been très amazing. Okay, very amazing, very amazing. So this is why we need plotting. Okay, so that was, if you guys have a question, why do we need plotting? That is why, to not make your story sound weird. You might have read a couple of stories, and no offense to Notion Press, I don't even know those people, but you might have read some stories from Notion Press that have been published by Notion Press that sound weird, that are not good, that are bad. That is because the writer has not put even a single second of plotting into it, and the stories have not been edited, right? Because when you have an option of just going and publishing your book by paying money, you do not invest in an editor, right? That's why the stories are bad. And that exactly is the difference between the stories of big publishers and publishers like Notion Press. Big publishers have a team of 5 editors. Okay. At my publishing agency, I have a team of 4 to 5 editors because I stress on editing because I'm an editor. You have to invest in editing, and but before that is like bahut aage ki baat. But uske pehle, guys, you need to understand plotting so that you can plot your own novel. Okay. Now, let us see what exactly is plotting. Plotting is creating a structured outline and framework for your novel with the help of plot structures in order to make your novels effective and to be able to deliver the desired effect for the readers. Again, plotting is creating a structured outline and framework for your novel with the help of plot structures in order to make your novels effective and to be able to deliver the desired effect for the readers. Now, in last 5 years, what has taken me the most time in writing my novel Sinister Town is the plotting. Because I'm not a hardcore plotter, it gets difficult for me, because what happens is, once I plot my novel, I start writing and then I start adding random scenes. So it gets difficult for me. That's why it has taken so much time. That is why it takes people so much time. That is why it is taking George R.R. Martin so much time to come up with Winds of Winter. It is not easy, guys. You have to understand plotting, and all the intuitive writers have problem with the plotting. That's why I try to teach all my students how plotting is done in a very systematic way so that they can apply the plotting in their novels. Okay. Now, we've seen what plotting is, right? Putting your novel in a systematic structure or a framework is known as plotting. Now, what are plot structures? Plot structures are the frameworks that help us or help a writer in organizing the story into a systematic book. A story's conception takes place in the writer's head and heart, inside the writer. But in order to turn your story into a book, you need a reliable step-by-step structure to know what to put where and how to tell the story. Okay. If you guys might have read the book, The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, I'm pretty sure most of you might have read that book. You know what makes that book so amazing? The plotting. all thrillers, all the amazing whodunit books, all the amazing reveals that you find at the end of the novels, how do you think they get at the end of the novels? Not by intuition. It's called plotting. How do you think Dan Brown writes his books? No one writes the books just by intuition. You have to apply plotting. You have to use a plot structure, even if it is just the basic 3-act plot structure. Okay. So you have to use plot structures, guys. Today, we are going to see 3 plot structures that are the most basic 3 plot structures. But I'll tell you what I've written deceived using the 3-act structure itself, which we'll be talking about today. There are more than actually 35 plot structures. Okay. And I obviously can't teach all right now. I take different workshops for different levels of writers. And in those, I introduce those structures according to the levels of the writers. Okay. Because you cannot just take everything in. Seekhna ekdam se is very easy, but apply karna is more important. So what I believe is it's better to learn 1 or 2 at a time and learn to apply them and then move forward from there. Okay. So, but before talking about any kind of plot structure, you will need to understand what are the elements of plot structuring. Okay. So let's look at the elements of plot structuring. This might sound a little confusing right now for those of you who are listening to this for the first time. I'm pretty sure all my students won't find it difficult because they already know it, right? But if you are new to this, let me know if you want me to go through this particular slide again in the end. Okay. First is inciting incident. Now there are horrifically scary definitions on the internet. So please don't go on the internet looking for the definitions, the elaborate ones, because you might think that because these are very small, they don't explain it enough. But trust me, I've spent almost 2 years coming up with these small definitions so that it can go easily in the brains of all the writers. Okay. So do not get confused with excess of knowledge. Try to learn it step by step. Okay. Inciting incident. Inciting incident is nothing but the event that kickstarts your novel. Again, inciting incident is the event that kickstarts your novel. Now, I'll give you an example. Say this is a pen. Okay. It is a pen. Why say it's a pen? It is a pen. Okay. So this is a pen. Let us think of it as your story. Okay. Story. Your story begins at some point and it ends at some point. Okay. So we are not concerned about the end right now. What we are concerned about is the start. I would say, let's take an example of, say, Harry Potter. Harry Potter turned 13. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sorry if I'm wrong because I don't remember the particulars, right? I've read it like years ago. So he turns 11 or 13. Okay. So he turns some age and the events of the story start, right? Because that is the age when he has to be put in the school, Hogwarts. But tell me, have you ever thought what before it? What comes before it? He was obviously living a life. We do get to see how that life might have been, right? Because it wasn't good for him. He was living with the Dursleys, so it wasn't good for him. But here, this is the life that was before the inciting incident. Okay. Inciting incident, I would say this black color thing. Okay. That kicks off the story. So in Harry Potter, the inciting incident is when Harry turns 11 or 13. 11, right? 11. Okay. So he has to be put in Hogwarts and a series of events then follow, and then we get to see the movie or the book, whatever, Now, if I have to tell you Game of Thrones, what is the inciting incident? Can someone tell me? I really want this to be an interactive session. So can someone please tell me what is the inciting incident in Game of Thrones? And do not Google search, because there will be 10 answers and most of them will be wrong. So what do you think was the inciting incident in Game of Thrones? Anything, the movie or the series or the book? I don't see any answers coming. So either you guys don't know or you guys don't want to share. Okay, I'll tell you. Okay, you have, okay, don't know. Okay, TK, it's okay. In Game of Thrones, the inciting incident, Robb Stark watches Lannister couple. No. That was Bran, Babu. Bran looked at the couple, but that was not the inciting incident. See, these things look like two sentence definitions, but they're very difficult concept. Okay, it's okay. It's very good that you are trying to think about it. It was a very Dipanshu Gupta, it was a very defining moment when Bran saw the Lannister couple, the Lannister brother and sister, twins, right? Cersei and Jaime. But it was not the inciting incident. The inciting incident, if you want to write down, please note it down. Ram, you can later on just read. Whenever you read the book, you'll get it. So just write it down. The inciting incident in Game of Thrones is actually when, I'm forgetting the name of the guy, but still I'll just tell. When the Hand of the King dies, Robert Baratheon's earlier Hand of King dies. That is Ned Stark's brother-in-law dies. Right? So the main inciting event is that after that, again, there is another inciting incident. That is when Robert Baratheon comes to Winterfell to ask Eddard Stark, Ned Stark, to be his Hand of King. That is the point that kicks off the story, because everything changes after that, right? Now, you guys have watched or read Lord of the Rings? So what is the inciting incident in Lord of the Rings? It's okay if you're wrong. I just want to see if you guys are thinking, and that is more important, right? Have you guys seen Lord of the Rings? It's okay. We'll be finishing off today early anyway, just another half an hour. So I want you guys to answer. What is the inciting incident in Lord of the Rings? Okay, tell me what is the inciting incident in The Hobbit? Hobbit is a smaller book, right? So let's talk about Hobbit. Or maybe any of Dan Brown's book. See, the inciting incident in Hobbit is when Bilbo Baggins is approached by Gandalf to help the dwarves and be their thief. Okay. Okay, Ramcharan, I remember Hunger Games, one ma'am, sole breadwinner sacrifices herself to go into Hunger Games instead of her sister. Yes, that is the inciting incident, because they come for the choosing of who will go, and then Katniss go instead of Prim, right? So that is exactly the inciting incident. Very good, Ramcharan. So this is how you find the inciting incidents. In Dan Brown books, it's always when Professor Langdon is approached by people to solve something or to find something, right? That is the inciting incident, because before that, he's just living his life, right? And we do not want to show the readers that, because that is not the story. Your story starts after the inciting incident. So very good. Inciting incident is very important because it is the hook of your story. If you get the hook of your story, the point of no return of your story wrong, your entire novel will be for nothing. or the story will be for nothing, no matter how short or long it is. Second is rising action. A series of incidents, relevant incidents that build up the plot, tempo, appeal, tension, and intrigue in the story is known as rising action. It is basically the tension that increases, and it does happen because of the crisis, which is the next point. Crisis. It is the decision or the dilemma that your protagonist faces in the story. Now, a story, now again, we are not in a novel writing workshop, but I'll just tell you this, that a novel or an entire story, when I say novel, just it's a story, okay? It can be a short story, it can be a 1,000-word story, microfiction. So in a story, you will always have scenes with cause and effect. There'll be thousands of cause and effect. And what these cause and effect does is give rise to crises and problems in a story. Problems may be minor, maybe major, right? Because the big problem is the external conflict of the story. But right here, what I'm talking about are the crises, the smaller conflicts, the minor conflicts, the smaller problems. हर सीन में एक प्रॉब्लम आएगा. अगर हैरी पॉटर को स्टोन ढूंढना है, right, the philosopher's stone, so he will have thousands of problems before it. Snape is following them. Then there's Hagrid and Hagrid's pet, the three-faced dog. Then there's the spider. Then there's this flying car. I know I'm mixing up the parts, but I'm just saying there's so many things. It's not just Harry wanting to defeat Voldemort, right? There's so many crises in between. And these crises are what makes a story so good. So engrossing, so entertaining, because you're all the time on the edge of your seat. What will happen next? Oh my God, what will he do now? And then you surprise the readers by throwing something else along the way, right? That is how a story works. Now, going back one point to the rising action. When you have crisis, you are having rising action. The action is rising, the tension is rising, right? The tempo of the story is rising, and that's how you have to build a story. You have to rise the tempo. That's how a reader turns the pages and reads your book. Okay. Now we have climax. What is a climax? The part where the rising action or the tension reaches its highest point, okay? That is known as climax in a story. Now we have falling action. Falling action, according to me, is the most boring part of a story. Sometimes I actually don't even just read it. I just skim over the falling action if the falling action is just too long, okay? So falling action is the part of the story after the climax and before the final resolution. Basically, in falling action, what you do is you tie up the loose ends. Okay, it's basically, falling action would be when Professor Dumbledore comes to Harry when he's found the Philosopher's Stone and then give him the chocolates, right? So there it was okay. I'm talking about the movie. There it was okay because it was very short. In novel, if you give that kind of thing for maybe say a page or two, that's okay, the falling action. If you give it for longer than that, you're going to kill the momentum, guys. You're going to kill your story. You worked so hard on building, okay? So always keep the falling action very short. I'm going to show you graphs now, the diagrams, and I hope you'll understand through them. So always keep falling action as short as possible after climax, and then just end your novel, okay? End it on a high note. Now, as we now know the elements of plot structuring, now we are going to look at the three traditional plot structures. The first one, I'm pretty sure everyone might know, Aristotle's dramatic plot structure. You might not know it by the name. Hi, sorry, Pooja ma'am. I'm not able to hear you.
Sorry, there was a little, I think the internet got freeze, so I just turned it on and then it started working. So
Okay, no problem, no problem. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so the three structures that we are going to quickly look into are Aristotle's dramatic plot structure, Freytag's pyramid, and three-act structure. Now, Aristotle's dramatic plot structure, most of you will be familiar with it, but you might just not know it by name, okay? Because it's very simple. Why is it very simple? Because it makes sense, right? It's common sense. But each and every other plot structure is made up on this Aristotle's dramatic plot structure. Okay, that's why it is so important. Aristotle's dramatic plot structure. In Aristotle's dramatic, sorry, just a second, let me just move my screen here. Yes, okay. In Aristotle's Poetics, he introduced the very basic concept of plot structure. He demonstrated that every plot, story, and or drama can be broken down into a beginning, a middle, and an ending. Okay? It doesn't seem much, but this is in fact the building block of all the other plot structures. Therefore, it deserves its place at the top of the list. It is obvious that a story is going to have a beginning, middle, and end. But I'll tell you what, I've read assignments from so many of my students, and it always baffles me that when I ask my students to write pieces of 200, 300 words also, there is no structure at all. They begin somewhere and then they end it. But there's no structure to it. What happens then is the piece, no matter how short it is, feels weird. Whenever anything feels weird, no, there's a plot structure related, a problem in it. Okay. So, according to Aristotle's Aristotle's plot structure, dramatic plot structure, he actually gave this plot structure for dramas, right? But now it's used for stories as well. Aristotle's dramatic plot structure is beginning, middle, and ending. Every story needs to have these three things. Now, if you will remember in how to work on your plot idea, I told you, you need to first work on the beginning of your story. Then you have to figure out the ending, and only then you will be going on to working on the middle of the story. Okay, this is what that was. Now, second is Freytag's Experiment. This is again the second most common plot structure on the face of the earth, but only very few people know it. Very few writers know it, okay? And I want you guys to know about it. So, Freytag's Pyramid, aka Freytag's Triangle, is a dramatic structural framework introduced and developed by the mid-19th century German author Gustav Freytag. He proposed the idea that stories can be broken down into two halves, play and counterplay, with the climax in the middle. Okay. Most of the plays written during that time, including Shakespearean plays, followed this structure. So basically what Freytag has proposed is that the entire story can be broken down into two pieces, play, counterplay, with climax in the middle. So it would look something like this because it is a Freytag's pyramid. Freytag's idea has been put into a pyramid, and this is how it looks like. Beginning, middle, ending. Middle exactly in the center. Okay. Now, I will show you my version of Freytag's pyramid, which will be a little more understandable to you guys, because this one seriously has nothing. Okay. So I will be showing you my version of Freytag's pyramid using the elements of plot structures that we have studied. Just look at it. Just take a second and look at it. This is my version of Freytag's pyramid. First, you have the inciting incident. Then that is followed by rising action, which happens because of the crisis. Then you get your climax. Then there is falling action. And then there is resolution. Okay. Just a second. I just need to slow down my AC. Right. So this is Freytag's pyramid version that I use and teach. Now, do you guys have any doubt in this particular structure? It might take you some time to get it because plot structures are not that easy to understand, and to execute is an entirely different thing. But all I can do right now is just teach you, right? So first we have, if you have to see it in a straight line, we have an inciting incident, then we have a series of crises that leads to rising action, and then we have the climax, and then we have falling action, and then we have resolution. Okay, this is how a story is plotted. This is the basic of story plotting. Now, we'll be looking at 3-act plot structure. This is the most important structure, and this is the one that I will suggest that you guys use it in your stories, even if it is just a 1,000-word story or a 500-word story. Okay, I'll be showing you the graph. It will make it more easily understandable for you. This chart, will it be exactly same triangle? Because in books we need to have a small falling action. Yes, exactly. That is the problem with Freytag's pyramid and Aristotle's dramatic plot structure. That is why we are going to use Ram 3-act plot structure, because in that we have shifted the middle, the climax after the middle. Okay, that is why I'm saying if you have to use one plot structure, it should be 3-act plot structure. Other plot structures are actually based on the 3-act plot structure, because most of the story, you can just right away point out the 3-act plot structure in any movie you will watch, in any script you will read, in any novel you will read, anything that is written, or any story you read or hear or you imagine, it can be broken down into the 3-act plot structure. Every story has at least 3 acts. Okay, so now we are going to talk about those 3 acts. The 3-act plot structure is the most widely used in the history of novel writing as well as screenwriting. It is a system of dividing a novel into 3 broad sections of 25%, 50%, and 25%, where each of the 3 acts have some specific plot or story move. It can be seen or identified in almost every story ever written. Okay. Now, this is how a 3-act structure is. Sorry, okay. Just click a screenshot of this so that it will be easier for you to refer to it later on. I actually have this as a blog post on my blog as well, crazycatwriter.com, under resources for writers tab. So you can find other resources there as well. And this is one of them. I also have the 4-act structure listed there. So you can read that as well there. So now, what we've done is we've just broken down the pyramid, because the pyramid is not how the story works. Okay. This is how a story can be structured way more easily. We have first the inciting incident. Now, I'm sorry, because this is keynote, I actually cannot point my cursor to where I'm talking about. So I'll just use my pen from here. So first we have the inciting incident. Now you will notice the inciting incident's line is lower than the resolution's line. Why is that? This is basically The vertical lines are basically how the tempo or the tension in the novel is. Okay. So when we begin a story, the tension is at a certain point. Okay. Now, after the inciting incident, all the tension or all the entire elements of the story will be compared to this inciting incident. Is it more than that? Is it less than that? Okay. There is also this in media res where there's a dip in the plot structure. Okay. But we are not going to talk about it. But there is a plot structure in which that happens. So first we have inciting incident. Then we have rising action. Tension is increasing because of all the crisis. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of causes and actions. No, lot of what do you call it? Just forgotten the name for it. Cause and effect situation. A lot of decisions to be made, a lot of problems to be solved, a lot of dilemmas. Again, the decisions lead to more problems and then more solutions, and then those solutions and decisions lead to more problems. So that's how you build up your story to the climax. Now here you will notice the climax is not at the center, because that was the problem with Fritzl Experiment. You cannot have the climax in the middle, because otherwise you will have falling action as long as the rising action, which will totally kill your story. So we've moved the climax a little ahead than the middle. In my novels, what I do is I give the climax. I have only 1, 2, 3 maximum paragraphs of resolution, and I end the story because my stories are open-ended. Okay, so that builds intrigue. Now, it is up to you where you want to shift the climax. Feel free to shift it according to your own needs. Now, climax leads to falling action. Falling action leads to resolution. Resolution is where all the loose ends of the story are tied up. Okay, that is for close-ended stories. Then resolution actually leads to end. Okay, resolution and ending are different, but I'm not going to talk about it, but they are different. Now, here you will see we have 3 acts, and as I said, all the 3 acts have 3 different moves. The first act will have your inciting incident. The second act will have most of your crisis, because the crisis actually began in the inciting incident act. So the crisis will begin there, but most of the crisis, the 99% of crisis, will happen in the second act, as well as the climax will happen in the second act, because it's the middle. So remember, 25%, 50%, and 25%. That's how the division is. Okay, you can change the division as per your need of the story, as per how or what suits your story. So that's totally up to you. But this is how generally it is done. Then in the second act itself, you have the climax. And then in the second act, the falling action begins. So the action starts to fall. And in the third act, it completely comes down, leading to resolution, leading to the end. Okay. So this is how a 3-act structure works in a story. I hope it is clear to you guys. If not, then just leave a question and we can then discuss it at the end. Okay. Now we are going to quickly talk about characterization. Now, characterization is a vast subject, and if you really want to learn about characterization and everything, I would definitely suggest you to join my another workshop that I have from 1st to 5th June. It is a 5-day workshop, and I dedicate one entire day, one full day of 2 hours to characterization, and that I'll be able to talk more about characterization. Okay, so now we are going to look into characterization. Oh my God, yes. There are 3 types of characters. First of all, there are 3 types of characters. Primary characters that play. Now this division here, the pie chart that you see, the circle that you see, This division is based, there are a lot of types of characters, but I've chosen this one because this is the division based on the narrative function of the characters. Okay. So primary characters, the main characters, plays 65% of the narrative function in the story. Example, in Harry Potter, who will be your primary characters? Harry Potter, obviously, right? And Ron and Hermione, they all are primary characters. Now, sorry, but not in all the parts. Not in all the parts, because there are one or two parts where sometimes Hermione takes a backseat a little and sometimes Ron take a backseat a little. Okay. So sometimes they become secondary characters. It all depends on the author's fancy. So it is not a hard and fast rule, but you need to know who your primary characters are, who your secondary characters are, and who your tertiary characters are in order to be able to work accordingly on them and on their profiles. Okay. We'll be talking about profiles later. Primary characters play 65% of the role narrative function in the story. Secondary characters play 30% of the role or the part in the narrative function. They have narrative function in the story. And the tertiary characters have only 5% part in the story or their function in the narrative. Now, in Harry Potter, secondary characters always are Dumbledore, before he dies. Dumbledore, Professor Snape, Professor McGonagall, Hagrid, and then all the other professors and all the other friends. And then Luna becomes a secondary character. Then you have Dobby. Then there's so many characters that are secondary characters, right? In tertiary characters, even Malfoy, sorry, Malfoy is a secondary character. Tertiary characters are only 5% narrative function characters. So I would say Crabbe and Goyle. Then Harry Potter has an affair with a girl. That girl will come in this. Then you have Rita, I guess. Then that the crying girl in the toilet. And then various villains, because they are not exactly secondary characters. Voldemort is actually a primary character because he's always there, even though in the background. But his various forms, for example, Tom Riddle, for example, the Philosopher's Stone in the form of the Philosopher's Stone and that professor that has the face behind his head, they will come in tertiary characters. Okay. Now, why is it important to know this? So that you can work on their profiles, which we'll be talking about, I think, in the next couple of 2-3 charts, slides. Let us look at character motivations. Now, this is something I don't think anyone will teach you. So it is very important for you to know this, because character motivations and stakes are basically something that makes or breaks your characters. Character motivation is the why behind your character's actions. Why does your character do a certain thing? Why does Harry Potter want to defeat Lord Voldemort so badly? There are others as well who want to defeat Voldemort. There's Dumbledore, especially. He has a lot of motivation to defeat Voldemort. But why Harry Potter is the main character? As a main character, what is his primary motivation to kill Dumbledore? Because if he won't have a primary motivation, that is his mom being killed by Voldemort, his parents being killed, both mom and dad killed by Voldemort, and his mother sacrificing herself for Harry, right, and saving him from Voldemort. So this is his motivation. If you remove that, there's no motivation, and then there's no Harry Potter for you guys. So motivation is very, very, very important. Why is Bilbo Baggins trying to do everything in his power to help the dwarves? Because simply because he wants to go on an adventure. He wants to experience it because he's never done it before. No other Baggins has ever done it before. So it is a very big thing for him. It is a very, it basically, if you talk about Maslow's pyramid of needs, it is actually self-actualization need. That's why it is so relevant. Okay. Then why does Jon Snow wants to defeat the White King so bad? Because of his morals. His morals, again, Maslow's pyramid, his morals are very important to him, just like Ned Stark, Eddard Stark, who died because of his morals, his beliefs. So Jon Snow's belief system is he wants to save not only the wildlings but also the other people from the Night King, the White King. No, White, it should be Night King, right? The Night King. So that is what character motivations are. Then we are going to talk about character stakes. Story stakes refer to what is at stake for your protagonist or the lead throughout the novel. So basically, what will happen if they don't do what they are on their journey to do? What will happen if Harry Potter won't defeat Voldemort? A lot is at stake, right? What will happen if Jon Snow won't kill the Night King? A lot. So those are the stakes. The higher the stakes, the greater the motivation of your character and the better the book is. Okay. It can be defined as the consequences, mostly negative, of your protagonist's failure. Stakes are influenced by three factors: fear, flaws, and regrets. Now, character backstory. Character backstory is a comprehensive overview of a character's history that extends beyond the story in which the character appears. It is important in order to establish a bond between your characters and the readers. Character backstories. Now, this brings us to the pie chart of types of characters: primary, secondary, and tertiary. When we are talking about the backstories, please write it down, please note it down. For your primary characters, you need to know everything about your characters, even if you do not include it in your story. You, as the writer, need to know each and everything that happened to them, whatever things they went through, little anecdotes from their life. You have to make up everything. So, for your primary characters, you need to write at least 7 to 8 pages of backstory for each and every primary character. For your secondary characters, you need to write only 4 to 5 pages of backstory. For your tertiary character, just write 1 page long backstory. Understood? That is why we learned about primary, secondary, and tertiary characters. In the same way, character conflicts. Conflicts are used in a story to bring it to life by adding layers to it. Now, remember, we talked about external conflict of the story, the main problem of the story. Character conflicts are the inner problems of the story, the inner issues of the characters. Character conflicts happen when a character struggles with something within themselves. It generally happens when the character struggles emotionally or is faced with two contradicting wants, needs, or desires. It is a complex concept to grasp, and in such a short time, I don't think I'll be able to explain it so well, but try to at least just understand what conflicts are, okay? It makes a character more likable and easy to sympathize with, thus helping in character development. They also help in building tension and raising the stakes, both of which affect the main plot greatly. Now, Harry Potter is there. What is Harry Potter's character conflict? Harry Potter's character conflict is that he feels lonely and he's been lied to, and he was being lied to about not being anything. His parents just dying in an accident, not being any important in any way. But as it turned out, Harry Potter was the most important wizard in the wizardry world, right? So these are character conflicts. Reasons that give rise to character conflicts. the beliefs and rules we inherited from our parents and family. Now I'm talking about characters, huh? The beliefs and rules the character has inherited from their parents and family. This is why backstories are important, guys. Okay. Second, the religious beliefs, dogmas or creeds the characters were indoctrined to believe. The societal values and ideals the character adopted while growing up. That is why backstories are so important. That is why I've asked you to write 8 to 10 pages of backstory for your main characters. Now, we are at the end. This is the last slide. I'm going to give you a quick cheat sheet for character profiling. Character profiling is basically creating a detailed profile for your characters. And these are the 5 things that you really need to include in your character profiles. Now, if you want character profile sheets, you can go to my blog and search for character profile sheets, or just go to the resources for writers tab, and you'll find 2 articles there on character profile sheets, and you can download the sheets from there. Okay. So this is a quick cheat sheet. Paris, or as we call it in French, Paris. Now, P for physical descriptions, A for attitude and behavior of your characters, R for reactions, how do they react to certain situations, I, inner thoughts and emotions of your character, S, speech of your character, how do they talk. Now, this is a very small cheat sheet for you all. These are the elements that have to be considered while creating or while profiling your characters. On my blog, I have a character profile sheet that is a basic one, and also one that has 50 to 100 traits. And also I've listed a number of articles by very good blogs on writing who have shared fantasy character profiling sheets as well, that has 100, 200, 300, 500, 1,000 traits. So you can download them all from there. Okay, I've given the resources. So that is all for today. I really hope I haven't overloaded you all with a lot of information, because this is a little tricky topic, and trust me, I haven't even gone in 2% of the technicalities that I actually generally teach. So, but you need to first get this before learning further. Okay. So
Wonderful.
I'm done now. Yes.
Yes, character profiling. So when we had a workshop for 3D animation or a character designing.
Okay.
Even these points were covered over there, that what's the reaction of your character, even whether it's in writing or in the, in creating a story, in a storytelling, this character, this PARIS are really important.
Yes, yes. Because see, in the end, like I've done 3D animation, right? Filmmaking. It is all about stories. Whenever there is a story, and stories, no matter what whoever says, stories are always about characters.
Yes.
So if you have a character, you need to explore the character as if the character is a real person.
So that's a little character, a little human that you are working at the background. Okay, I'm sure students had fun. I have seen that they were even responding, they were chatting, and Ram Charan, I'll just read, ma'am. It will be exactly same triangle, because in books we need to have a small falling action. Okay, it's about that triangle.
The triangle thing. I think in place of an equilateral triangle, you might have some obtuse kind of a thing, right? Because you need smaller rising action. In case of classics, definitely you will have this climax in the middle, and that is what makes reading classics so hard. Okay, so just remember, if you want a fast-paced book you or a story, then your climax has to shift on the right hand side.
Okay.
Towards the end.
Okay, so keep the momentum high and keep the excitement also high.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay, guys,
are there
any questions? Yeah. How to tell story from point of view of in animate object like a terrace.
Oh, you can do
Dipanshu
it very
Gupta.
easily. Okay, you can actually do it pretty easily. You can actually do it in first person also, third person also, second person also, like you are totally stepping on me, right? So if I have to give you an example, I'm a terrace. Um, all you'll have to do is just observe. You'll be a very observant terrace. So people are walking in, and I'll tell you what, a little trick. Don't reveal that it's a terrace. Okay, at least not initially. Let the readers figure out. Narrate it in such a way that it is obvious that you are a terrace. Do not say you are a terrace. Okay. So when I say stories are about characters, the characters can obviously be in inanimate objects as well, non-living things as well. So a terrace, I see so many people coming in and stepping on me. Some feet are soft, some feet are light, some feet are heavy. Now I'll just tell you what. This can be a very metaphorical thing because the heavy feet are carrying the sorrows inside. Okay, so you can do it that way. Some feet are smelly to add humor. Some feet are just so light, but I'll tell you what, my favorite feet are the tiny little feet of toddlers, or maybe the tiny paws of cats, because they're just so pure, right? So something like that, you can just, I'm just making it up, but yes, if given time, I can totally write a piece on it. So it can be done.
Okay, wonderful. So basically what you have said is action speaks louder than words, and explaining that I'm a terrorist, your actions, or if not in writing, your action speaks that yes, it's a
Right.
terrace, because what
Right.
else could be jahan pe people are putting their feet.
Exactly. And then mention that you are able to see the sky. I'm lucky that I am on so and so floor. Even go to like saying that you are on a floor. So
And I
you
have a
can talk.
garden. I have a
Yes,
garden
yes.
on me.
Yes, garden. I have a garden also, so I can smell flowers. So it's like more about telling and showing. So try and show, don't tell.
Okay, great. I really like this question that has just come from Nabamita Datta. What will
Okay.
happen to the story if we started with a climax?
You can start a story with a climax. What will happen is when you start a story with a climax, your hook will be the climax. But let me tell you, either you will have to go according to the plot structure of Memento, because we have a lot of plot structures, as I said, right? So we do have plot structures where the climax comes first. So Memento movie, you remember? Gajini, the Hindi, the Tamil one, right? So just watch Memento, please, guys. Don't watch Gajini. Memento is the original movie. It was actually kind of a documentary that was presented, and then it was just released as a movie. So in Memento, frame by frame, they just go ulta in time. Okay, so that is a very good example of the climax at the beginning. And there are a lot of plot structures that do that. If you don't want to go with the entire story being driven by the climax, then what you can do is just, as I think talked about it yesterday, just give a glimpse of the climax at the start in 1 or 2 pages, and then start the story where you want with the inciting incident. But yes, you can make your climax as the inciting incident.
Can there be two climaxes? Is another question from
Oh,
Shreya.
no. Whatever the climax will solve the main problem of the story will be known as the climax. What you are talking about is having a very good crisis.
Okay.
Okay, so what will happen is climax will only be one, because the highest point of tension is only going to be one. So दोनों में से जिसमें भी tension सबसे ज़्यादा है, that will be called a climax. The other one will be crisis, no matter how good it is.
Okay, wonderful. So I think instead of taking more questions, let's leave them for tomorrow. Let some climax or some excitement stay there. And you do add your questions tomorrow in the Q&A section, although I can see there are 3, 4, but I'm sure they will be covered tomorrow, because tomorrow we are going to learn how to develop a writing habit, importance of reading in fiction writing, reading like a writer, writing concepts, idea journal, morning words, writer's block, and writing rituals. So that's all we are going to cover tomorrow with Miss Heena Pardeshi, and I'm really excited. You know what, Heena ma'am, I think now I will also start with a character and come up with a story, and
Oh,
we'll try. We'll try.
yes, yes, definitely. Yes, yes. That would be
So
wonderful.
I am sure everyone else is going to do the same. They have taken a note, and by tomorrow, we might get some stories coming up on our social media handles. So,
Okay, great.
anything that you create, please share it on social media channels, and do tag Creative Warriors with the Creative Me hashtag on. And you can tag Media and Entertainment Skills Council, Vidya Dan, and we'll be waiting for your stories and characters, whatever you get to design. Rest, we'll learn tomorrow from Miss Hina Pardesi. So stay safe, take care, and don't go out. Just take care.
Yes. Chalo,
Bye
thank you
bye.
guys. Thanks a lot,
Thank
Pune
you, Hina
ma'am.
ma'am. Yeah.
Bye.
See you
See you
tomorrow.
tomorrow.